ever wanted your company to be very successful?
Well, look no further. My name is Aditi Kapil, and my job here is to help plan your company to great success. When it comes to different planning tools and strategies, there are two main ways of doing it. There's the short term and there's a long term. Now, for short-term planning will occur within less than a year when it comes to their time frame. It could be for a few weeks, a few days, months, but the max amount would be for a year. And they're often utilized to middle to low management because those are the ones that are generally in the front line when it comes to this organization or for your company when it comes to talking to different customers, transactions, what's going on a day-to-day basis with your company, and that's where the short-term plans come into action. So let's start off with our first short-term example, which would be policies. Now, policies is kind of like different types of rules or main guidelines when it comes to taking some sort of specific action or specific rules or main mindset for the company. Most organizations have a very large number of policies, which are normally put into very big books or hefty textbooks. And these policies and rules are specific sets of rules that have to be followed and have to be abided by when you're in that workplace or in that organization or in that company. Short-term example would be operational plans. Now, operational plans are basically different, a whole list of plans or tactics that are followed by a step-by-step or day-to-day procedure. And these procedures are basically needed to be followed in that exact same order in order to achieve that plan or to do that plan or task correctly. Now, onto some long-term planning tools. Now, long-term is different than short-term because for short-term, it's within less than a year, but for long-term, it's basically past 1 year or more years. The longer it is generally a long-term plan. Now, examples for long-term organizational plans can include budgets and strategic planning. The first long-term plan are budgets. Now, budgets are based on money or resources and where it goes, where it comes from, where to allocate it, where most of your money or resources are being used upon, where they're not being used upon. Anything that's dealing with allocation of your money or your resources within your company or your organization. Now, budgets can help with to help monitor spending, associating costs and expenses, basically just helping to determine as to what is going on with your resources or with your money and how to safely, value it, how to make sure there's enough for any kind of project or plan you guys are working on. Managers will usually spend a lot of their time within that year or two or even more preparing for budgets for the many years to come. That's why it is a long-term plan. Many budgets help organizations to measure whether or not they are overspending, and if they are, to make adjustments so that, wherever it needs to be required or whatever needs to be fixed. And budgets also help to ensure the organization stays profitable and does not go in debt, because that is not something you'd want to be in. This long-term plan would be strategic planning. So strategic planning is basically any kind of big futuristic plan or a plan that the company or organization has for the future that is very broad and overriding. A great example of an entrepreneur actually that has used strategic planning in a very well way is Elon Musk, and for his companies of Tesla and SpaceX. Now, so it's basically used to help vision as to where your organization will be going forward and what it wants to achieve in the long run. Now, let's talk about all these other useful planning strategies that aren't really into place when it comes to short-term or long-term, as they could fit in either different section. Well, let's start off with some theoretical planning approaches, and those are usually described by these two main types of planning: rational comprehensive planning and incremental planning. Now, both of these types of plannings are basically known as that planning that you feel like something is the right decision, that gut feeling that you get. That's usually where rational comprehensive planning and incremental planning come into play. Now, they are fine as either or specific types of planning, but most people prefer to have them both put together and use both of these planning terms together, and this is called a collectivist planning approach, and this is way more effective as compared to just doing either or. But this planning strategy is an organizational vision statement. So it just kind of relates to the whole strategic planning, how you have that one main vision for your company or for your organization, or something, or like a vision or an idea or something that your organization stands for. Now, this could be anything that your organization believes in or is an idea or a vision that keeps your company grounded, or maybe an idea or a vision as to the main reason why you started to create this company or this organization. For example, the Terry Fox Foundation is their main vision or their main goal is to being a non-profit charity organization to gain as much money and donations as they can to help with cancer research. The next planning term is forecasting, or just forecast. Now, of course, many meteorologists use forecasting to forecast or predict what the weather would be. Now, you could use the same terminology or the same form of planning in your business or in your organization, as you can plan as to what would happen to these certain products or your organization in the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, even 100 years. Who knows? The main thing with forecasting is that it helps to predict what the main perspective or plans are for your organization, and what would be the projected revenues or profits for your organization and for your company in the long run. Next strategy would be participatory planning. Now, participatory planning is kind of like that kind of technique where you would take other people's opinions or views that aren't from your company or from your organization. So this would include specific stakeholders to be a part of your planning process. These stakeholders would be any kind of stakeholder that is at most interest and concern for your company. This could be consumers, this could be other countries and their main companies to help build your products. Any main stakeholder is very valuable and important because their opinion as to what you as a company need to change is very, very, very helpful. It also gives you another perspective or another viewpoint of what other people see in your company that needs to be improved, and that also helps you in the long run by giving you higher levels of creativity and a newer insight as to what could be changed to make your company even more successful. Another strategy is benchmarking. Now, benchmarking is a planning strategy that uses both the internal and the external comparisons to help make better improvements for your company in the future. The real purpose for this strategy is to observe as to what other people or other successful companies are doing in order to maintain that success when it comes to planning, and being able to use those ideas and just sort of using it as a benchmark in order to add on or maybe add it or implement into your organization, or as to what you are doing already in order to uplift your organization and make it much more successful than it already was. And last but not least, our last strategy for planning would be scenario planning. And now the name really says itself as to what you're entitled to do. So for scenario planning, it's a planning technique that involves identifying possible scenarios, situations, obstacles, problems that your company or organization could come across. Now these little tidbits of planning or scenario planning is very helpful because let's say this incident or this situation or problem actually arises within your company. Instead of freaking out and thinking on your feet and making some next non-correct or irrational error or some sort of solution that you think is best at that time, it could either end up poorly ruining your company or maybe taking it to grand success. There's that really big 50-50% chance, and no company wants to risk their company going into a whole other turmoil or going completely downhill. So by being able to properly plan out or think of these scenarios beforehand, it helps to think of clean and smart moves that a lot of people would have not thought of while they're thinking about these situations on the spot. So I get it, it's a new era of technology and people are always using their phones or laptops to write note-take and everything. And obviously just, writing or planning out your situation or your company's success all by hand or on paper or listening to it it's too outdated. So I found a few little bits of apps or websites you could use to help take your whole ideas of planning that you've learned in this video and put them and implement them into your company and organization. Now, some apps or applications that you can use on your laptop or your phone could be Google Calendar, iPlanner, any sorts of planners or calendars, the ones you can find online, or even the physical ones as well, do justice as well. You can use a whiteboard and just have your group meetings and just write and talk about how you're going to implement and plan your company's success. And there's also this one specific app, it's also a website as well, that I really, really love, and it's called Monday. And Monday is this website and app where it basically has everything when it comes to planning all implemented together. And it's really great when it comes to team managing, HR, many different HRs departments in many different companies really, really recommend this app and website and I personally find it really, really good as well when it comes to managing and planning with my. Now here is the Monday website, and you can see a new way to manage your sprints. And this is very, very like it's colorful, it's clean. Many different websites agree to it. You can customize your workflow. You can track progresses with your team members, your employees. As I said before, my name is Aditi Kapil, and I hope this video helped you when it comes to planning and executing your company or organization to the best of its abilities. Can't wait to see the success that your company has and will be in the future.